Good afternoon for you, everybody. I have another set of videos for you guys, or another set of charts to go over. I will be covering Bitcoin, SpaceX, Lululemon, and a few other charts. Let's go ahead and dive into the first one. So here's BOOT, B-O-O-T. A couple different things that I'm noticing. Downsloping trend line, pivot top here, secondary hit, third, fourth hit, creating this nice wedge pattern. You've also got this pivot low here, secondary hit, third hit here. Now, I do use order blocks a lot, and I used to not. And even if you don't use order blocks, the charts themselves give you a real clear indication of what's going on in the charts. The reason that I have order blocks on it is just gives me a little bit more confluence in which direction price action is likely to get stopped. So here's this resistance trend line. Even without order blocks, you can tell low pivot point here, price consolidated here, got a nice bounce, came below it, and then retested it, and then had this huge sell-off, which tells me that on the way up, there are going to be a ton of buyers who are stuck here wanting to get out of the trade. And then all of a sudden, it came back down and retested this upsloping trend line. Now we're in this nice wedge pattern. So even with order blocks on, we have to see what's going on with this wedge pattern. If it consolidates inside of here all the way to the apex, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to break out of this downsloping trend line and move higher all the way back up to likely 176.47, or if it starts breaking this level, then your next level of support that I see, even without the order blocks turned on, is going to be right here. Again, the order blocks are just for additional confluence, not the only thing that I trade, but now I'm starting to use it a lot more. So here's Dutch Brothers. Another reason, look at this. Look at this order block set right here at this pivot top. Even with the order blocks turned off, you could tell that this was going to be major resistance on the way up. And that's exactly what happened. It got really close to this level, got this nice rejection, and now here is your support level. What I like to see about this is you have a low pivot and a ton of price consolidation. Price then broke below it, closed below it, and then took off to the upside, got rejected, came back in. Now we're doing that same type of pattern again, not only two times, but for a third time. This engulfing reversal candle, for me, tells me that there is a lot of bulls still in Dutch Brothers. And this is actually near and dear to my heart because it originated in Oregon, and that's where I'm from. So I really like this chart of Dutch Brothers. $50.60. That is really my line in the sand. If we can maintain price action above that, then Dutch Brothers has a potential to go higher. And here's your first level of resistance that I see. Not only is it this price consolidation right in this area, but look at this red bar candle after I think it was earnings before it shot down. If we start breaking this support level at $50.60, here's a gap that still needs to be filled on the chart of Dutch Brothers. And so $46.69 is that next level support that I would like to pick up Dutch Brothers. And again, that's going to be, at least for me, a lot of support. YASS. So I don't have anything on the charts right now. What can you tell about this chart just by looking at it? Well, it's currently in a downtrend. And if you've done chart analysis enough, you can already see that there's going to be a downsloping trend line that connects all of these pivots. So let's go ahead and draw that in for you. Pivot top here. Look at this downsloping trend line. Now, a downsloping trend line doesn't have to connect the pivot tops perfectly. What we look for is what's going on with the majority of them. But this is actually doing a pretty good job of respecting this downsloping trend line. Now, right here, we're actually starting to break out. But on this daily candle, we're looking to come back in. So for me, this is the line in the sand. $8.89 is a level that price action on YSS needs to stay above. Not only is it the all-time low, but it's also a break and a retrace of this pivot low. So sometimes what can happen is similar to what happened with Dutch Brothers. You get a close below with a lot of bearish sentiment, and then all of a sudden the markets take it in the other direction. So that could happen here. But if that does that for me on YSS, I would actually have to wait for that breakdown close below this pivot, and then it has to recapture this as it becomes resistance and then flips back into support, and then I could be a buyer on YSS. For me right now, it hasn't made that kind of confirmation, so I have to wait a couple more days to see how this thing starts playing out. It would have to get above $11.26 before that pullback before I would be interested in buying it. All-time lows, this is really, really tricky. Even though it's looking to put in a nice a bear flag at the lower end, which could send it higher, I'm not touching this thing for quite a while. Lululemon, here's a resistance level that I have. $128.85 is that level that, as you can see, has been a ton of resistance before. And so just turning on the order blocks, you can see this is your resistance zone. Look at all of these buyers who were stuck in this trade, who looked to exit, and now all of a sudden we're continuing that downtrend. So what this tells me is that if Lululemon breaks through these two support levels right here just below it, I like $110.50 because similar price action, right? We got a nice close below Lulu, this 110.50, got into this bullish volume, drove price back up. So for me, there are still a lot of buyers who are stuck waiting to actually get into the trade on Lululemon. So this is my first support zone at $110.50 because we've recaptured that area. Second level of support is all the way down to about $102.67. So that's my support zone. If price action can start consolidating and get through all of these sellers right here, then we're going to have a minor pullback off of this resistance level. And then you're coming up to this pivot top right here at about $143. And this is what I mean. It doesn't necessarily say, hey, this is the only indicator that you're going to have on your charts, but it gives you a little bit more confidence that there's going to be a ton of resistance at this area. So if I'm long right now, I have to be really patient, wait for some sideways consolidation before that next leg to the upside. SpaceX, we're not going to have as much information on SpaceX as some of the other charts, but somebody was asking me about this. But here's an order block right here, right at that $150 whole run number. Here is what we need to happen. So price action opened up at around 150 on the after the IPO, but the IPO price is 135 bucks. So there's a range that SpaceX is kind of stuck between 135 and 150. If we start breaking $135 to the downside, then everybody who's in the IPO at that price is actually underwater. If it starts recapturing that $150 level, all these buyers who are accumulating all the way down to about $105 are now nicely in the money, and then they're likely to continue to hold, and then the price action can drive up. So these are my support and resistance levels that price action needs to maintain in order for us to decide finally what happens. It's almost like a wedge pattern. Price is going to consolidate either on the upper end right here at 149.34 for another move to the upside. And for me, as you can see, this red bar candle high is going to be a ton of resistance. On the downside, we do have some support, but for me, my next level of support, once we break 135, it's going to be back down at 108.37, all the way down to 104.83. And these are the levels that I had back here, actually, when price action was at the 6th of August. So I still like the price action. I don't like it as much if it breaks 135.08. So Bitcoin, I went over this in the morning session. No order blocks turned on, but you can see where the resistance level is. The only thing is Bitcoin didn't respect this resistance at all. This should have been a ton of resistance around $73,000. A lot of price consolidation. All the bulls who were on board here then ended up having their price action get flushed, came back up, paused just briefly, and then just catapulted to the upside. Here's my next level of resistance, or it was at 78,716. Bunch of pivot tops, ton of price consolidation, and then Bitcoin just continued to push. So here's what we have to monitor on the chart of Bitcoin. What happens today? If we can close below and create a topping tail on Bitcoin, and I'm actually going to draw this in here because we can see the price action. My max upside, at least until we do some price consolidation, is 81,551. Here's what needs to happen in order to create a topping tail. Price action needs to be, let me go ahead and try to readjust this. Okay, so there's a pivot top, pivot low. If price action were to close right now, it would be officially a topping tail. This is telling me that there's a lot of sellers in this candle who are wanting to get out. And then as soon as this finally flushes, then everybody who's in this trade right now in the money, they're going to start panic selling it and likely to pull it back all the way down to this previous resistance, or minor resistance really, at $73,000. If we can't close above or below 78,851 right in this area, then all of a sudden it takes the opportunity for this to be a topping tail off of the table, and then it could push up to 81,587. Ton of resistance, and I guess it could go up to this pivot top, but for me, this is likely we're going to get a huge pullback on the price of Bitcoin. All right, UNH. Just looking at the charts, had this huge push to the upside. I did have this upsloping trend line that finally broke, and that's what we were kind of waiting for on the price action of UNH. But look at this red bar candle. Once you see a huge red bar candle like this is telling you that there are a lot of people vacating the premises on the chart of UNH, and as you can see, we're marching down. So here's your support level at $386.47. The one thing that I really like about this currently is we had this downsloping trend line, and this was a pretty sharp sell-off. Caught this support level, and now we're getting a bid to the upside. So now that we've broken this downsloping trend line, and we're coming into this resistance, if we can push up a little bit higher, I would wait for a retrace all the way back down to $386.49 to start picking up UNH. But you turn on the order blocks, you'll be able to tell where the support levels are and where the resistance levels are. So as you can see, here's an order block that was created. Underneath that, ton of support right at these pivot tops. So if it does again break 386, your next level of support below it is $370.48. On the way up, we're going to have some minor resistance on the way up, but this is really the line in the sand that I would need UNH to actually get above. If it starts getting above $416.33, then we can start pushing into this resistance. But on the way up, UNH is still going to be faced with a bunch of sellers who are likely to want to get out of the trade. It is looking a little bit more promising now that we've broken this downsloping trend line though. Celsius, ton of resistance right here at $35.58. Huge push to the upside. $25.05. Take a look at this. You zoom out, ton of support in the area on CELH, which is one of the reasons that I really liked it. Now, I did have another support level at $21.20. Pivot low, major pivot in the charts. We broke below, closed below it with high volume. This is capitulation, 43.88 million shares. Talk about getting the bulls out of the way and the bears on board, driving the price action lower. And then what happened the following day? Huge reversal candle. This happens on a regular basis. It did get a little bit of resistance at $27.08 and a tiny bit of resistance. As you can see, we did get above it substantially and then got back below it. But then we ended up closing pretty high above that resistance, or should have been resistance at $28.20. Broke a nice downsloping trend line, never retraced. This is telling me that we are about to run out of steam in CELH. So even with the order blocks turned on, you can tell where the resistance levels are. And when I say resistance levels, I don't necessarily mean these are shortable levels. These are just places that I would take some of my portion of the portfolio off of the table, especially if when it came up to this downsloping trend line again, I would have removed some. As we stack order blocks below price action, this is giving a little bit more confidence that we could still continue higher until we start breaking the support. If we start getting below $32.82, then all of a sudden the bears are retaking control. And for me, 33.81 is really that line in the sand. If we start getting below that, then we're going to start pushing and crushing these support zones, at least for me on CELH. On the way up though, you got this pivot top right here, ton of price consolidation. And if you zoom out in the charts, even without the order blocks turned on, look at this low pivot. So again, this is what I mean. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the charts, but it gives you further confluence on where resistance or stopping points on the charts are going to be. And for me, if we can get above this, this is going to be a major order block that Celsius needs to start pushing through. And this is why it's getting overextended. $37.45, not necessarily a shortable level, but definitely a place that I would start looking to take some of my trade off of the table. Above that, your next order block set, if you can start consolidating through that, is going to be right here at 43.50. Last but not least, SIRI. Here's the price action of SIRI. You zoom out in the charts, ton of price consolidation right in this area, all the way from this low pivot to these resistance and support zones. Got a nice flush below it. Now here's the range that we have to watch on SIRI now that we've broken this upsloping trend line, even without the order blocks turned on. This is a resistance zone. If we can reattack $30 and get above that, then we can start pushing up to this gap in the chart sitting at $32.56. But we're kind of creating this bearish consolidation right here. So the support levels on the way down, my next level of support, even with the order blocks turned on, 25.84, but really, you zoom out, pivot top here, and a ton of price consolidation. So for me, $24.51 would be that next level that I would be interested in getting into the trade on SIRI, especially after breaking this upsloping trend line on the chart of SIRI. So thank you so much for joining me in this afternoon session. If you guys could do me a favor, just hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. And then if you are subscribed and you want to get notified when these videos drop, go ahead and ring that bell and you can get notified when a new video comes out. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.